All right, what's up, you guys? We are going to go over UFC 310. I'm going to start all the way down. We're going to just start with the first fight of the night and just kind of go through the card, just do a little analysis and give my pick on all the fights for UFC 310. Um, so starting it off, we have Kennedy and Zekachu versus Lucas Bresky. Um, Honestly, I think Kennedy takes this fight. He's moving up from light heavyweight. He just fought Chris Barnett when he blew his knee out. Didn't get to see a whole lot there, but I think honestly, I think he's going to have quite a bit of success at heavyweight. Just moving up from light heavyweight, he was a bigger light heavyweight, maybe a little bit of a struggle to make the weight. So I'm excited to see him at heavyweight. I think he's a good size for heavyweight as well. Doesn't lack in height. He's a good size overall for heavyweight. Bresky's 1-4 in his last five fights, and I think Kennedy's going to move up and do some good work. He's also had some better fights in the UFC. I mean, his Olberg fight aged pretty well. He did beat Olberg. He's also fought, Paul Craig, Devin Clark, OSP, Dustin Jacoby. Not saying those guys are like top tier UFC fighters, but also I think he's fought some tougher competition in the UFC. Um, so I'm gonna lean Kennedy on this one. I think he's gonna take care of business for sure. And then the second fight on the early prelims, we got Guida versus Chase Hooper. Um, Guida's an OG, but I think he's not gonna argue with he's way past his prime. Hooper's pretty young. He's shown a lot of improvements in the last fights that he's had. He has been cracked on the feet a couple of times, but in his last couple of fights, he's just consistently showed improvement. He looked great his last fight out. Got a knockdown in the first round. I think he outstruck him like 180 something to two. Um, yeah, he put on a great performance his last fight. I think Chase is going to be able to take care of business here. I'm going to have to pick him here. He's a pretty big favorite. I don't think that's any surprises, but I think it'll be a good fight. I think Cooper will show some more development. And I think Guida is just kind of a good stepping stone for him coming up in his career. Definitely going to be a fun fight to watch. I think it'll be some fun grappling exchanges. Not necessarily the most exciting fight on the feet, but I definitely think there will be some good grappling exchanges there. But yeah, I'm going to pick Hooper in that one. I would have to go probably Hooper by decision. But I also could see him getting a submission on Guida as well. Maybe Guida leaves an opening on the ground. Hooper does have some pretty solid grappling. Next fight on the early prelims, we have Chiesa and Max Griffin. Chiesa coming off a win of Tony Ferguson. Um, he was feeling pretty good after that win, called out Covington. Um, I don't I don't know if he'll get that fight or not, even after this one, but I think this fight he's the underdog, but I also think he's gonna be able to just kinda, push the pressure in this fight and keep the grappling exchanges going. Griffin has shown holes in his grappling to someone like a Colby Covington. He's shown holes in his grappling throughout his career. And I just think Chiesa will be able to implement his game plan, push the pressure on him, keep those grappling exchanges going, and squeak out a decision. I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to finish him, but I would pick Chiesa by decision here. I think his grappling is just going to be a little bit too much, and I think he's going to be able to control Griffin. I also think he's got good enough striking to not get cracked on the feet. I don't think Griffin quite has the one punch knockout power to just get Chiesa out of there. And I don't think he's going to offer any submissions like maybe a Darce like Kevin Holland threw out there. I don't think he's going to offer anything like that in return to Chiesa in those grappling exchanges. So I'm going to have to pick Chiesa here. I think he can hold his own on his feet, and I think he has a pretty large advantage in the grappling exchanges. So we're going to go Chiesa on that one. Let's see. So we got, yeah, two more fights on the early prelims. So our next fight is going to be Cody Durden versus Joshua Van. Um, Van's already fought three times this year. I just started watching him this year. Pretty fun fighter. He's coming off that war on the Noche card, fighting in the Sphere. Um, Really fun striking. He's got clean striking. I really enjoyed watching it. He's got a fun style of striking, good hands. Um, yeah, he was coming off that war in September. He got knocked out, I believe, in June or July, and then he also did fight in January this year. So win, loss, and win. So he's 2-1 this year, having some pretty good momentum this year. As for Durden, he showed some pretty good improvements in his striking in his last couple of fights. I do think Durden is a more well-rounded fighter overall. Um, I think that he's going to be able to just kind of put a pace on him, be able to push his grappling. I think he does have an advantage in the grappling scenario, so I think he's going to be able to push his pace there. Get an advantage in the grappling scenarios, possibly make Van, down 1 or 2 rounds, have to fight behind a little bit on the feet, maybe leave a couple more openings. I could see Durden, being able to show off a little bit more of his striking if he's able to implement his grappling early, force Van to take a little bit more chances and leave some openings. Um, yeah, and then I also think Van won't be able to open up as much as well on the feet initially to start the fight, just because of the fact that he does have to worry a little bbit more about those grappling exchanges. So, that always does kind of limit how much you are able to do on the feet. I do think he is just a little bit more well rounded. And so I think that, yeah, Durden's more well rounded, so that I think that he can push that pressure and kind of implement his game plan against Van, make Van a little bit more hesitant on the feet, and maybe fight from behind and leave a couple more openings. So yeah, I'm going to pick Durden in that one. And then final fight of the early prelims. This was supposed to be on that MSG card. Anders pulled out, but we have Weidman and Eric Anders. They're also fighting at a catch weight for this fight. Um, for this fight, Weidman coming off of that win against Bruno Silva, kind of a controversial win with the eye pokes. I think he caught a little bit too much heat for that fight. I mean, I understand. I obviously don't agree with the eye pokes, but I also don't think that you can fall down. Like, I'm not saying he fell down, but I also don't think you can have that reaction when you get an eye poke. The referee doesn't necessarily know that if he didn't see it right off the bat. Um, Unfortunate way to lose the fight for Bruno Silva, but I also do think that Weidman was winning that fight before any of that happened, before the eye poke started to kind of take their toll in that fight. I do think Weidman was showing that he was winning that fight. So, yeah, I don't think he should have caught as much heat as he did, but yeah. Anyways, Weidman coming off of that win, I think he's going to be able to come in here get another win against Eric Anders. Anders has some good takedown defense, but I still think Weidman can implement his grappling. I do think he is just a little bit more well-rounded on the feet. I think he's going to offer a little bit more for Anders to think about on the feet, um, as well as he's an All-American wrestler. He's going to be able to implement that grappling. Um, I definitely think he's going to be able to implement some grappling. May not be as much as he wants to. Eric Anders is, ex-football player. He's a big, tough guy, big, strong guy. I think that Weidman may have some issues with the strength, but I do think eventually he will be able to implement that grappling. And like I said, I do think he has a little bit of an advantage on the feet as well. So on to the next fight. This is a great fight to kick off the prelims. We got Rude Boy Randy Brown versus Brian Battle. Battle's coming off a big win in Paris. Um, I think he's on a roll right now in the welterweight division. Randy Brown, he is coming off a nice win against Salikov, I believe was his last fight. The King of Kung Fu just got a spinning back kick knockout in Macau. Um, but I think Randy Brown, I don't think he's going to offer quite that grappling threat towards Brian Battle. I think this is going to be more of like a kickboxing fight in a cage. Um, and honestly, I think Brian Battle is going to be able to push his pace, push his cardio. And I honestly think he's going to get it done on the feet. I think this is going to be a really fun fight. I think this is a great fight to start off on the prelims. Like this is a main card fight on some other cards for sure. I think it's going to be a great fight. I am leaning towards Brian Battle here. I'm not counting Randy Brown out at all. He's got great striking. He's super tall for the weight class. He's really long. He's got really clean striking. So I think this is going to be a really fun fight, but I think Brian Battle's just on a roll here. I think this is just kind of catapulting him up into the rankings a little bit more. I think he's going to get a bigger fight if he wins this fight, especially in convincing fashion. I think Brian Battle will get a pretty decent fight after this. He's good on the mic. He's a fun fighter. He's got a fun fight style. He's an Ultimate Fighter winner, so he's kind of, built in the UFC. So I could see if he wins this fight, he gets a big fight after it, and I think he's going to get this fight done. So I'm going to pick Brian Battle in this one. Um, Next fight we got here is Movsar and Aljo. Um, Personally, I like Aljamain. I think Aljamain gets a lot of unnecessary hate for that Piotr Jan fight. I mean, he took an illegal knee and he gets a lot of hate for that. People said he was acting and all this stuff. I think Aljo is definitely one of the better bantamweights of all time. I think he just kind of has a tainted legacy because of that knee. And then some people question that second Piotr Jan fight. I personally thought he won that decision. I had it 3-2 rounds Aljo, pretty solidly. I think Aljo won that fight. Um, and then the TJ fight, he can't control that with TJ's shoulder. Um, and then the Henry fight, Henry coming off a layoff, but Henry's a super tough stylistic matchup for Aljo. He's a grappler, Olympic gold medalist, and Aljo's main thing is grappling. Aljo was still able to implement his game plan. I know it was a split decision, but I mean, Henry's no joke. So I think Aljo gets a lot of hate for that, and then he got knocked out by Sean. But honestly, I think if you run that fight back, I think Aljo probably wins it. Um, Sean's great; he's got great striking, but I think for Sean to win that fight, he needs to land that punch again. And I think Aljo just he's got great grappling, and I think that fight, I don't know, stylistically, it obviously favors Aljo. Sean obviously got it done, but I think if that fight happens again, I'd be picking Aljo. In this fight, Mozart's coming off wins of like Diego, Arnold Allen, so some big names in the featherweight division. Um, he's shown improved striking. He was able to wobble Allen. He beat Lopez. He's got great grappling. Everyone knows that he's got great grappling. But honestly, I think in this fight, I'm gonna pick Aljamain. Reason being is I think that Aljamain he's got great grappling as well, and I think in the Arnold Allen fight, Movsar was able to rock Allen just because of the grappling threat. Allen has to be more aware of the grappling, which opens up a little bit more in the striking defense, just because he also has to be aware that he can't get taken down and controlled and give up that round. Um, Aljo obviously still has to worry about that grappling threat, but it's not as big of a threat to someone like Aljamain as is to an Arnold Allen. So I still think Aljo's going to be able to open up on the feet. I think Aljo's got underrated striking. I think he's got good kicks. He's got pretty decent striking overall. He uses his length pretty well. So I'm gonna have to pick Aljamain here. I think Aljamain gets it done. I think it'll be a fun fight. I think there will be some fun grappling exchanges. I think there will honestly be some fun striking exchanges, just being with how both good they both are with grappling. So yeah, I think that's going to be a fun fight. I'm going to lean Aljamain on that one. I think that'll just have some fun exchanges on the ground and on the feet. So yeah, I'm picking Aljo in that one. So moving on to the next fight in the prelims, we got Luque versus Garimbo. Garimbo's coming off two decision wins. Um, he's looked pretty good in those. He showed good grappling. Luque's been kind of on a skid lately. And I think this is kind of a fight that's going to be pushing Garimbo into the rankings. I think Garimbo gets it done here. I think Garimbo is able to implement some of his grappling against Luque. I think after he implements some of his grappling against Luque, maybe Luque will second guess himself a little bit on the feet. I don't think this is going to be a super exciting fight per se. I think it's going to be a decision, but I do think that Garimbo's able to get it done in this fight against Luque, bring him up into that top 15 of the welterweight division, start getting him some bigger fights from there. I think he's on a pretty decent little come up here. So I think that should be a pretty decent fight for him. I do think he gets it done against Luque. I don't have too many thoughts on this fight, honestly. I don't think it's going to be in the most exciting fight, but I also do think Garimbo gets it done, gets himself into the rankings in the welterweight division. Um, Next fight, we have light heavyweight. This is going to be the last fight of the prelims. We got Dominic Reyes versus Anthony Smith. Um, Honestly, I think Reyes is on a nice little comeback in his career after his losing skid. I think he's looked good. I think he's in a good place mentally. Um, Anthony Smith has not looked the best recently. He's lost to Delize, um, who is coming up from middleweight, and he really just hasn't looked amazing in his last couple of fights. Um, I think that Reyes has a advantage in the striking realm, and I think he takes advantage of that there. I think he's able to get it done on the feet. I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to get a finish against Anthony Smith. Um, But I think Reyes gets this one done pretty convincingly, honestly. I think he's on a nice little comeback in his career, and Anthony Smith has not looked great in his last couple of fights. So I'm going to go with Dominic Reyes on this one. So that's going to wrap up the prelims for us, and we're going to kick off the main card with Nate the Train Landwehr and Doho Choi. Um, this is just going to be a fun fight. Just plain and simple, this is going to be a fun fight. Nate always makes it a fun fight. He's great on the mic. He's hilarious on the mic. His fights are always fun. He always gets rocked. He always comes back. They're always bloody, full of action. I think this is going to be a really fun fight. Fun fight to open up the main card with. Um, I'm gonna lean Nate the Train here. Um, Honestly, I just am really excited to watch this fight. I think this is gonna be a fun fight. Look at this fucking bicep, baby. Like you got to go Nate the Train there. So yeah, we're gonna go Nate the Train there to open up the prelims. Um, Honestly, no hate towards this next fight, Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie, but Aljo and Movsar should be on the main card instead of this fight. Um, Kron did not look great in his last fight. He's got the Gracie name, the Gracie legacy. Obviously, he has great grappling, but he looked outdated in his last fight. He was, trying to pull guard, kind of laying on his back, trying to force those jiu-jitsu situations. His grappling did not look great. And against someone like Charles Jourdain, Jourdain was able to kind of cancel out those grappling situations. He had such an advantage on the feet. He was just staying safe on the ground. And Kron just did not look great. I mean, obviously he's got that great grappling, so Bryce definitely has to worry about that. But I just I think Bryce is going to be smart enough to stay safe in those situations, and I think he's got an advantage on the feet. Like I said, Kron just did not look great in his last fight. So I'm gonna have to go Bryce Mitchell here. He's a pretty large favorite. Kron just did not look great in his last fight, so we're gonna pick Bryce here. Third fight on the main card, we got Gon versus Volkov. Um, Gon versus Volkov 2. Gon's already beaten Volkov. Um, Gon hasn't fought in a while. He's not the most active fighter. Volkov's been looking good recently. He beats Sergey. He looked really good in that fight, neutralized his power. But honestly, I kind of think this goes like the first fight again. I think Surreal's striking is going to give Volkov problems again. Um, Volkov's a little more flat-footed, whereas Surreal's very bouncy on his feet. He's got that more kind of sideways stance, throwing those odd kicks. He uses his range very well. He's got very dynamic striking for heavyweight, and I think that it's going to look somewhat similar to the first fight. I'm going to have to lean Gon on this one. Volkov has looked great recently, but I think Gon with a little layoff, coming back into this, I think he's going to be looking pretty solid for this fight. I think it's going to look like the first fight, and I think Gon takes the win here. Um, Honestly, this is probably the fight I'm most excited for on the card. This next fight, Shavkat versus Ian. Um, this is going to be a super fun fight. Two undefeated welterweight prospects. Um, Number one contendership on the line here. Both undefeated. And yeah, I think this is just going to be a great fight. Shavkat's a killer, 18 and 0, 18 finishes. Ian's 15 and 0. They're both coming off some great wins. Ian's coming off a win of, an MVP, a Jeff Neal. Shavkat's coming off a Wonder Boy and a Jeff Neal win. So they do have a common opponent there. Um, Jeff Neal was taken a decision by Ian, and then Shavkat finished him with that bulldog choke. But personally, a lot of people are saying Shavkat by however he wants, Shavkat by submission, but I'm leaning Ian here. Reason being is Shavkat's definitely shown that he's hittable. Jeff Neal was definitely getting to him. He was getting hit, and I know Shavkat walks through it, but Ian's got such clean striking. He's so clean on the feet. He's in and out. He's got a clean 1-2, clean with the counters, um, and he's able to just point fight. It may not be the most fun way to fight, but he's able to just point fight. He's able to 1-2 in and out, keep his distance, just kind of eat at you with like front kicks, little kicks like that, and just keeping his distance and point fighting. Um, and Shavkat's going to try and push that action. And honestly, I think this is going to be a great fight. I think that overall, this is going to be a super fun striking matchup. They both have great striking. I do think Shavkat has the edge in the grappling, but also Ian did show some pretty improved grappling in that MVP fight, and he's been working down with the shoot the box in Brazil. So definitely been learning some great grappling from people like Charles Oliveira, some great MMA grapplers. So I think he's shown improved grappling. I think his grappling's improved quite a bit. Um, I think that Ian's going to be able to pull this one out. It may not be the most fun fight in the world. I know Shavkat's a killer, but I think Ian's going to be able to kind of just be able to point fight this one, keep the fight on the feet, um, keep his distance, land his shots, get in and out. I think Ian's able to get this one done. Also, I think Ian could get a finish here. Like I said, I think Shavkat's hittable. Um, and I think Ian's got really clean striking. He's really precise with his striking, and it doesn't matter how good of a chin you are or chin you have, or who you are. If you get hit on the button, like you can go out, and I think Ian's able to do that. Definitely not counting Shavkat out here. Like he is definitely a pretty large favorite, but I do think Ian is able to get this one done. I think it's gonna be a great fight, but I'm gonna lean Ian on this one. I would not be surprised at all if Shavkat wins, but me personally, I'm leaning Ian. So yeah, I think Ian gets it done here. And yeah, so on to the main event. We got Pantoja against Asakura making his debut in the UFC. um, I think the UFC here, they just kind of ran out of options with Pantoja. I mean, he's ran through most of the top 10 of the flyweight division once, if not twice, maybe even three times for some of those fighters in the flyweight division. So they just kind of ran out of fresh fights, fresh matchups for him. And so I think taking Asakura in, it brings a fresh matchup into the flyweight division. Also, it brings in a pretty big star from Japan. He's big on YouTube. He's got a really big following as a Japanese fighter. They're really big behind, or they're really big over there behind him. So I think this could be the UFC trying to push a fresh matchup, but also try to push another superstar in the UFC. The flyweight division has had problems, with Mighty Mouse and them wanting to close down the division and it just not being the most popular division, which personally I don't quite get. I think the fights are really fun. I think they show great technique. They're so small. They're so fast. They have so many tools in their belt. I think they show. I think their fights are so fun to watch. Personally, flyweight's one of my favorite divisions to watch. Um, so yeah, I think the UFC is just trying to build a superstar in that division. Try and hype up the division a little bit. But honestly, I think Pantoja gets this one done. I think his pressure and his grappling, I think it's just going to be too much. I've gone back and I've watched some Asakura's fights, and he is dynamic. His knees are insane. They're deadly. He's a great counter striker. He's got amazing striking. But I do think that Pantoja is going to be able to push that pressure and just get him up against the fence, make him fight off the fence, limit what he's able to do. And Pantoja is a backpack, and I think that Pantoja is going to be able to implement that grappling game plan, and be able to possibly get a takedown and get a finish on Asakura. If not, I think he's gonna maybe not win the most fun fight. But honestly, Pantoja's not in boring fights. I couldn't tell you the last fight he was in that was like a boring fight. Um, his fights are always pretty action packed. He does that bulldog rush and he gets caught sometimes. They're always bloody. Um, so I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I think Pantoja is just going to be able to implement his pressure and get the win here. I am really excited to see Asakura in the UFC. He's got great striking, like I said. His knees are just brutal. And I'm definitely not counting him out here in this fight. I think, like I said earlier, when Pantoja kind of does that like bulldog rush in, I think there's definitely a chance that he can get a finish countering him coming in like that. I'm totally drawing a blank on the name. Maybe Juan Archuleta was the fight. I apologize if I butchered that. I can't remember if that was his fight, but his most recent fight where Asakura caught him blitzing in with that knee. Like I could see something like that happening, but honestly, I think that Kai has got to get a finish here. If not, I think that Pantoja is just gonna apply that pressure and honestly just start to drown him over the 5 round fight. I think if Asakura doesn't get it done early, that Pantoja is going to be able to just implement his game plan, drag him into deep waters, and I think he's either going to be able to get a submission win here or bring out a decision. But I am definitely leaning Pantoja here. But yeah, I think that's uh I think that's where I'm going to have to lean is yeah, Pantoja. I think it's going to be a really fun fight, but yeah. And that's it for the main card. That's going to be it for the breakdown. I will do a recap after the fights are over on Saturday. I'll do a recap and post that next week. But thank you for tuning in, and